Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm Claire Zammit. I'm the founder of the Feminine Power Courses for Women, and it's my deep honor and joy to be with you tonight as your host for the worldwide premiere of my good friend Geneen Roth's brand new book called This Messy, Magnificent Life. It's her first book in more than 6 years, and when I found out that she was going to be launching the book, I reached out to her to offer to host this gathering to bring all the women in our communities together, because there's never been a more important time for us as women to free ourselves from self-doubt, from shame, from negativity, from unworthiness, any underlying sense that we're not enough, because it's our time to take up space. It's our time to have a voice. It's our time to rise into our brilliance and our power. So Geneen's with us live tonight. She's going to show you how to do all of that through following the steps that she lays out in her book. We're going to be joined by two other brilliant women leaders, literary legend Anne Lamott and Elizabeth Lesser, who's also New York Times bestselling author and founder of the Omega Institute. Geneen's going to share key highlights and insights from the book. She's going to do a reading from the book, and to do something very special to celebrate the worldwide premiere and the launch of the book tonight, we have something very special for you, where we're going to be sharing an invitation, a special gift, bonus workshop with Geneen on a brand new, never taught before masterclass on women, weight, and power. You can scroll down and see all of the details about that workshop. But when you go ahead and order a book today, it's the first day you can order from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble, from your online bookseller, or even your local bookstore. When you order a book today, you'll also receive this additional gift, masterclass on women, weight, and power. All you need to do is enter your email and your receipt number, and you'll be included in the group who are going to be coming together for this masterclass with Geneen. So without further ado, let's jump in. And live from New York, we're going to bring Geneen on and just welcome you to the celebration of your worldwide premiere. Geneen, welcome. So great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to be here celebrating with you. I love it. I feel grateful and happy and honored and privileged, and yay!
Well, today's launch day. Congratulations.
Oh, yes, it is.
This morning I was doing this. I was bouncing your book up and down. It was like, your baby. I know this has been 6 years in the making, and I've seen you out in your studio, hard at work for 6 years, creating this exquisite masterpiece. And like all of your books, the writing is absolutely superb. But you know, the thing I just love and appreciate about you so much is, as a teacher, as a writer, as an artist, you just keep going. And this is uncharted territory. This is something new that we've never heard from you before. And I can't wait for you to share with everyone about the message of the book and how this came to be. So let's maybe dive right in. And I want to just start by saying, you know, it's been 8 years since Women, Food, and God exploded onto the scene, made such a huge splash. It engaged millions of women to see the underlying deeper root cause of issues with weight, with body confidence, being more spiritual issues about our relationship with ourselves, with the universe. And through that process, I think something very big opened up. And I know that since the writing of that book, you made a remarkable discovery that led to the creation of this new book. Can you share with us what that was and how this book came to be?
Yes, thank you for that question. I realized soon after writing Women, Food, and God that although I had healed my relationship with food and the size of my body and body weight, there was an underlying low level of anxiety that I woke up with every day, a harsh criticism of myself that had been going on since I had been really young, which I had thought for a long time had to do with my relationship with food and the size of my body and my weight. But turned out, even after that was gone, this was still there, this criticism and this tendency to focus on the negative, to see what was wrong instead of what was right. So it was like there was a backwash of negativity, almost like a movie screen that could be white, but actually wasn't white because it was washed with the color of negativity. And everything I saw washed with negativity, with a sort of something's wrong here. And so I wanted to start to see, the question I asked myself was, is it possible to work through this, to be in relationship with this when it doesn't have to do with food, but does have to do just with being alive, magnificently alive? Is it possible on a day-to-day level to be with that, work through that, so I could feel the sort of just sheer joy of being alive despite its many challenges? Could I use the so-called messiness as a doorway to what I call the magnificence? And that's how I started. And it turned out that I could, in fact, do that, that there were certain basic things that I saw that I used with healing the relationship with food that it had never occurred to me to use in the rest of my life in an ongoing and very attentive manner.
Wow. And so I've heard you say that the key problem for most of us is that we're waiting for circumstances in our life to change. You know, we're waiting for the, the big break, or our bank balance to change, or our weight to change, that we think that happiness and fulfillment is only possible when our external circumstances line up. Even those of us who are so, on a spiritual path and consciously know better, still, our experience of life is not the magic, the connection, the love, the goodness, that we're kind of on the outside of that. Can you speak more about that, as how it shows up for you and the women that you work with?
I'll speak personally first about that, and then I'll talk more generally about the women I work with. I always say that people have about 3 themes that they go round and around about. And one of my main themes is what I call the little match girl theme. And I don't know if you or people listening actually remember the little match girl myth, but basically she is standing outside in the snow, barefoot, wearing rags, and looking at a family on the other side of this big picture window who's all together wearing little velvet dresses or big velvet dresses. The adults are dressed very well. The children are in their little velvet dresses. They're roasting a turkey. They're hugging and kissing each other. There's a feeling of warmth and love and belonging, and, oh, it's all good over there. And my sense of myself has been, for the longest time, or was, that I was the one who didn't belong. I was the one who could never belong. I was born without an essential piece of DNA. And so it was always going to be my fate to be on the outside of what I call the center of warm. And I thought that I could fix that somehow, that with enough therapy and with enough spiritual practice, that would be fixed, that it was possible to dissolve that completely, never feel that again. And that was part of my inspiration for writing this book, because I realized that with decades of therapy, some of it fabulous, and with decades of spiritual practice, there was a way that this wasn't getting integrated into my daily life, and that I was still waiting to be ready. I was still waiting to fix myself so that I could finally have the life that the people on the other side of that picture window had, the life of belonging and roasting turkeys and velvet dresses and all kinds of hugs and kisses and things like that. So I just kept putting my life on hold till tomorrow. And the thing was that it never came, because no matter what arrived, I kept raising the bar, because I kept feeling this sense of damage, of being doomed, of being the little match girl. And so I wanted to put some tools and processes into place, the ones that I used to heal my relationship with food, so that I could work with this and on this on a daily basis.
And what started to happen when you did? Well, and I want to add in there one more thing I want to add in, and multiple New York Times best-selling books, you know, in terms of like the things that you have achieved or created in your life that still you know you didn't find took away this experience, right? Because I think we have this. Now you were speaking also recently about a very, very successful woman who says she wakes up every morning feeling a lot of anxiety still. You know, I think there's a myth that we really do think that when we have this success, when we have all of these things, that's going to go away. And I hear what you're saying is that that doesn't change. That's a totally different thing to what these other things might be in your life that you're creating.
The things out there don't change in here. I think that's the thing that we all think is going to happen, but actually never does happen. Success, a loving relationship can bring you what success and a loving relationship can bring you. The same with having thinner thighs. Having thinner thighs brings you a smaller pant size. It does not equal joy. Having success is fabulous. It's wonderful, brings more people who are aware of one's work, but it doesn't fix the inside. When you feel damaged or doomed, nothing out there can fix in here. This needs to be addressed directly just by naming it. And that's what we're doing right now. I think we're pulling up the covers and naming something that has never been named or rarely gets named, because in our culture, we have so many images of big, successful people who we think are incredibly happy. And, you know, the emperor has no clothes on, so to speak. There is still a measure of misery or unhappiness or depression, addiction. There's so much going on that we can't see. And I found that out for myself the hard way. As a little girl, I used to believe that being really successful and or famous was the answer to everything. And that all famous people must have been happy. And I'm not famous, but certainly I've had more success than I really ever thought I was going to have. And even that, the small measure I've had, has not done it in terms of the internal level.
So what really does work?
Right. That's a really great question. So what works is every day. We're talking now of ordinary moments of every day, of waking up in the morning. I'll tell you the 4-step process that we use of every day waking up in the morning. What I do when I open my eyes is I ask myself, what's not wrong? I have to do that. Otherwise, my draw and it's seeming to be magnetization to negativity just draws me into something's wrong and who's to blame. And so I have to make an effort to refocus my attention, because there's so much more that's not wrong than there is what is wrong. But because I've grown up, and also we all have, that's part of the human condition, part of evolutionary development, is that people survived by not being eaten by woolly mammoths. And so in order not to be eaten by woolly mammoths, they had to be on the lookout for woolly mammoths. Well, our brain is, you know, what do they say? It's Velcro for the negative and Teflon for the positive. So we're drawn much more to the negative, and therefore it takes some practice or some effort. And all we're talking about is 12 seconds 5 times a day, a minute a day. Everybody's got a minute a day. So you start with that in the morning, and then you ask yourself, am I here? Am I located here? Orient yourself. Just look around the room. Do as the Tibetans say, be like a child, astonished at everything, as if you've just landed here on planet Earth for the first time and you've never seen a light, and you've never seen a chandelier, and you've never seen a floor. So there's and you can't believe you have arms and legs. So there's just some kind of orienting, grounding yourself in your body, and being aware that you have a body, sensing your body, directly sensing. Again, doesn't take a long time. It's just about refocusing your attention. And then further on in the day, if something happens, you notice if you've gotten triggered or reactive about anything, a rejection, somebody said no to you, a disappointment, something you perceive as abandonment, and then you turn towards that rather than away from that, because the scary stories we tell ourselves about our uncomfortable feelings, this, by the way, is step 3. The scary stories we tell ourselves are just stories. So if we're feeling sad, it's a sensation, a feeling in our chests. We can contact that and be very concrete about that. Without the story, there's nothing scary about it. There's nothing overwhelming about it. And then the last piece, the 4th step piece, is you ask yourself, as I said before, what's not wrong, many times a day. Yeah. Did I mention disengaging from the crazy ant in the attic?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, let me talk about that for a second, because that's
Sure.
actually an important part of this. That is because you talked at the beginning, Claire, about the criticism and the judgment and the way we are with ourselves. And that is a function of what I call the crazy ant in the attic. The harsh, judgmental, blaring voice that got developed by the time we were 4, that goes on and on and on. That's meant to be adaptive, but at this point has become maladaptive. It helped us at one point stop throwing food on the walls, not bite other people that we came into contact with. I mean, it really functioned well to make us, to internalize societal norms. But at this point, it's self-destructive. But how you change that is by naming it and becoming aware you have one, seeing its impact on you, and disengaging from it.
So the root cause, this is what I hear you saying. This was what I got from reading the book. You're saying, and I just want to just underscore this because it's so important, is that our experience of happiness, of fulfillment, of intimacy, of aliveness, of participating in a field of connection and goodness, from which we can access confidence, courage, all the things that are of this higher order of destiny that we feel. You know, all of that can only happen when we free ourselves from these negative internalized voices and stories. And no amount of accomplishment, no amount of circumstances in our life lining up in the right way is going to make that happen. Only a shift in our own consciousness, only a shift in our own relationship with ourselves.
Yes, right. Because in the end, it's you go to sleep with. It's you wake up with, no matter who's next to you, no matter how much love or lack of it you have during a day or a night, you still fall asleep in your own body. And you still go through the night in this body. Or I mean, we're a lot more than our bodies, but let's just use that for the time being. Mm-hmm. And your successes and your accomplishments don't mean anything in the middle of the night or when you first wake up in the morning. It's you with you. It's you with your mind and what you say to yourself and how you are with yourself. And if you're kind to yourself or mean to yourself, kindness is something we all need so much more of. We're afraid that if we're kind, then we won't be motivated to change. We'll be self-indulgent. But in fact, the opposite is true. Kindness relaxes. Kindness allows you to see what needs to happen next. It allows those frozen or undigested voices or parts or identities to relax so that you, the wise you, can actually see what needs to happen, can make changes.
And so the absence of dealing with this, what do we do instead? You know, this is the root of all addictive behaviors, whether it's food, whether it's TV, it's the internet, right? Where we're surfing the web over the crazy aunt in the attic or watching TV or shopping or spending. And that impacts our health. That impacts our sense of stress. You know, so many of us are running around with a nervous system where we don't have any kind of buffer. And you're saying all of this is kind of the root of all of this. It's not that we got a bill, or it's not that we're having these external challenges, even though we might need to address some of those things. It's not that those things are not important, but the root of all of it can be transformed in the steps that you take us through in the book.
Yes, because it's never, or I should say rarely ever, the external situation. It's the stories that we tell ourselves. It's the way we freak ourselves out about our interpretation about what's happening. That's what causes the suffering. A challenge is a challenge. Sorrow is sorrow. Somebody close to you is sick. If you're sick, if you've broken a bone, if you've broken your back, as I had, and I write about that in the book, if you are sleepless in the middle of the night, if you've been left by somebody you love, those are all challenges. Those are all part of the so-called messiness of your life. That's part of being in a human body on this earth. You can't ever avoid those. You just can't. There's no time in the future where you're going to have it all together and none of that's going to happen. It's always going to be an ongoing issue when we're here on earth in a human body. That's how it goes here. And so the challenge is, how do you work with it? How do you be with it? How do you use those things, be in a different kind of relationship with yourself about those, so that there's an alignment with the life force, with brightness, with I don't exactly want to say positivity, but with what's possible, rather than constantly warring against what's happening.
Right. And when you're in that relationship to life, you know, there's real things that you're dealing with, but you're not held back. We're not held back by the imagined constraints that are the majority of things that hold us back, right? So we're in a consciousness of limitless possibility. We're in a consciousness of connection. And this is the place where we can access creativity. This is the place we can access flow. This is the place that we can access authentic confidence. This is the place where we can access courage to go for our dreams, resolve to deal with the real things that do need to be transformed, such as our health or our finances or things. It gives us the power to create as we make a shift in that core consciousness within ourselves.
Exactly. That's the important thing. People, as I said before, often hear this and say, oh, I won't be motivated if I'm not criticizing myself. But the real truth is that when you stop warring with yourself and with what is, then you can access the kind of confidence and power that we're talking about.
Beautiful, powerful. So I want everyone to know that you can order your own copy of this Messy, Magnificent Life. Just if you look down below on the page, you'll see all of the links where you can go and place your order for a copy of the book from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble. And all you need to do is enter your receipt number, and you'll also get access to this brand new masterclass with Geneen. We're going to have Anne on in just a moment. But Geneen, this is just such a beautiful book cover. I just want to say and just point out how beautiful this book cover is. And just, you know, I know there was a story about the moon. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I was just about to tell you, but also the great thing about this book is that it feels so good. The paper's soft and the stars are shiny.
It is.
And so just putting your hand on it feels good. And that's really important. Aesthetics and beauty are very important. Not the kind of beauty, the, you know, the ideal beauty, but just touching something that gives you pleasure. And so this book, these moons on the first printing of this book.
You hold up the moon? We can't see it. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, the moon is right here. This is the moon. And it's a gold moon. And the first covers, the whole first printing was printed without the moon. And the moon is a really important part of this. And so they've each been hand embossed. And I love that story. I actually didn't know that till 2 nights ago. And I'm glad I didn't know when it came out and there was no moon on there. But now I do know. And I just love it because it's extra special care and beautiful.
Well, we'll talk more on the other side of Anne joining us about what's in the book. But the thing I want to say is the thing that's just so exquisite is, you know, what we just talked about in that transformation. You take us on that journey of transformation through a collection of very intimate stories that are laugh out loud funny. They've moved me to tears. There's so many parts of it. I mean, I kind of feel like there are just so many pieces that I want to invite you to share, and we'll be doing that on the other side of Anne joining us. But I want to just let you know, if you've just joined us, you can scroll down below to find all the details about where you can go and order your copy of the book. And Geneen, more about the actual book and what's in it on the other side. But I'm just getting a signal that Anne is with us. So let's shift gears and welcome our first very special guest, Anne Lamott. Anne, hello, welcome. It's so great to have you with us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, Geneen. You look so beautiful. Hi.
Oh,
I'm going to hold up your book like everyone else is.
So we're celebrating. Yes.
Yay.
Yay.
And, what an exciting day. And my dog Ladybird is here as your caseworker if you have any anxiety or right here.
That's
I'm
wonderful.
so glad. I love Ladybird.
Look, Ladybird,
Well,
it's Geneen. Okay, we're all set up now.
That's so great. Well, Anne, I want to formally just welcome you to this special event. I know you're Geneen's good friend. She's just sharing a story about you, and you're a multiple New York Times bestselling author. Anne's latest book is Hallelujah Anyway, and I know that she's working on a new book called Almost Everything, and she wrote the foreword to this messy, magnificent life. So we're so excited and grateful that you're here, and welcome.
Thanks. So somebody asked me something.
Okay, so you know what, Annie?
Yes.
Tell us all what you like about the book.
Oh, what I like about the book? Well, I love the opening paragraph. I can kind of do anything I want, right?
Sure.
Let me just, I'll read the first line of the introduction. Just once, I'd like to read a piece on Geneen Ross that does not mention food. And what I love about the book is that it's so much about food and all of life. And that food is for some of us a portal into healing the deeper soul and spirit injuries. But that in this book, while writing about food and healing and eating in a joyful way, without shame or without these horrible voices of the culture telling us who we are, what we should do, and how much weight we need to lose in order to be considered valuable, you write about what's underneath that, which is the separation from self, which is another way of saying separation from life and separation from God. And so, as you were saying, you know, in the Me Project, you can get all these ducks in a row, but it's like then their feet aren't duct taped to the floor, so the ducks start running all over the place, you know. And so you can't get everything to work in such a way that you will, from the outside, get the sense of wholeness and of value and of being an exquisite, precious being, whether or not your weight is up 3 ounces or not. So I've always thought the image I would use is of trying to put an octopus to bed, you know, and that you get 6 of those arms under the sheets. You get your career kind of more or less together. You have a partner, or you're really happy being alone. You get a little house where you're safe and blah, blah, blah. And then one of the arms flaps out, you know, and so then you go on a diet. Usually the default response, if you're an American girl, is to go on a diet. So then you either get your weight down or you know, and then the ducks that you've gotten in a row start racing all over the room, and the octopus arms are flapping all over the place because you haven't done that soul and spirit healing. And this book is about soul and spirit healing, and what you know that is so profound and sometimes so hilarious about what will work and what won't. It's like, don't bother with this. The diet won't work. Regrettably, because I would love to start a new diet tomorrow. It would just fill me with joy and a feeling of hope, but it wouldn't work. Is the one problem, is that it would probably make me gain weight and make me, you know, mental. So what you say is don't bother with that, but maybe try this. Maybe we'll get ourselves a lovely cup of tea. Maybe we'll put a little lotion on the thighs instead of making them go for a run, which is almost, in my case, never a good idea. Maybe we'll do this radical self-care instead of, deprivation and the mean voice of the crazy aunt upstairs. And so I love that you go right to where the bodies are buried, which is that we were taught as little children, we were raised to self-destruct. We were raised to be alienated from ourselves because it didn't make our parents feel any better. It seemed to make our parents feel better about themselves when we felt worse about ourselves because we didn't surpass them. We didn't steal any of the very limited oxygen in the room. I'm sure your family was very healthy and it had extensive psychotherapy to have good self-esteem and learn to raise a child with healthy boundaries and self-esteem, but mine didn't. And so I didn't want to suck up their oxygen and I didn't want to steal any of the light. So I learned to think that I was the problem and that I was annoying, or that if I did a tiny, tiny bit better, or if I had less needs and basically no emotions. And so that's what your book, that's a way of paraphrasing so much of this book, is that we were hardwired to self-destruct. And I don't know why something just rang. I wonder if they're cutting me off or something, but I feel
you're good.
Someone would let me know if they did. Your husband, Matt, would call me and say they've cut you off. But anyway, and so the book is about what a long and amazing, magnificent journey it is to do the restoration of self and soul, that on the way to being the precious, even delightful beings that we were born to be, that our parents forgot to mention. And you know, we've talked for probably 2,000 or 3,000 hours privately about how our parents seem to think that if we could just do a tiny bit better in school, then we would be safe in the world. And we did a tiny bit better, and we weren't safe in the world. And we grew up into women who did a tiny bit better and then a tiny bit better, and really achieved great things in our lives as writers and speakers and kind of missionaries. And it wasn't out there. It turned out that there was nothing out there, least of all a diet, that was going to give us that feeling that we had longed for our entire lives, that would fill the Swiss cheesy holes inside of us. It was going to be an inside job. A diet wasn't going to do it. And every single essay in this book, I'll hold it up again. I'm in this kind of Vanna White mode. Although Claire, I don't see your book.
Here it is.
Here we go. Okay, here my book is. Okay, here we are. We're having like group book. But it was the book, and the most important teaching I know is that it's not out there. And it doesn't have to do with any number. You know, I've always said, and we always laugh about this, that getting on the scale every morning is like asking Dick Cheney to determine your worth as a human being. You know, it's crazy. You're just going to feel worse than you did. And that what is going to change your sense of worth is the self-care and quiet and meditation and dogs and really beloved friends and all the things of the spirit, all the things of the love energy around us all the time that we thought we would feel for ourselves if we just got down to the right weight.
And so, Annie, why do you think it's so hard to believe that it's not out there, even though so many of us have learned it like 100,000 times? There's still the sort of itch to believe that it is out there. It is out there, even though we know that it's not out there.
It's just, we believe it because this is what they tell human girls, and we're human girls grown up. And from our earliest days and earlier today, this is what I was told by the culture, by every single ad I saw on MSNBC. And it's a long road back. But we think that we're, as you were saying earlier, we think we're supposed to arrive, but we're just supposed to get on the path with each other and go, how are you doing today? Oh, I feel a little funky. Well, what's going on? Well, I'm in Little Match Girl, or I'm in, I have this rashy feeling. Well, we talk about it. Where's the healing? We find a girlfriend. We find someone to talk to. We tell the truth. And then we turn on the TV and we see all the ads for the corporate industrial messages that if we only spend $118 a week eating, basically cardboard with petroleum product sauces on it, we'll get our weight down and then we will feel good about ourselves. But the truth is that I call you, or I text you, or I email you, and I say, I hate everything about all of life. And you say the secret words, what's going on? Or you say, me too. You say the magical words, oh, I was there the other day. It turned out I was really separated from myself. It turned out I was obsessed with this or that. Tell me how you feel. Are you breathing? Why don't you just put the phone down and get a really cool glass of water? And I start to be with me when I'm in healing mode, the way that I would be with you. I'd say, Geneen, come sit down with me and let's have a lovely cup of tea and play with the dogs. And then we both get happy, right?
Right.
Every single word from the culture is about us spending money somehow to change the surface and to burnish the surface just a little bit shinier, and then we will feel different about ourselves. But the Swiss cheese inside of us is only filled by self-love. It's only filled by all the spiritual tools. It's like, you and I both, Geneen, have these kind of crummy, battered toolboxes with the most profound tools that the spiritual life can offer you. But that's not what we want. We want to go shop, right? And so one of us might remember to say, Geneen, open your toolbox, take something out. What is it? Well, it's meditation. Okay, I'll do that with you. Let's talk in 20 minutes more. Let's just sit down each quietly and do Gil Fronsdal's, my very favorite guided meditation at Audio Dharma, and I'll call you in 15 minutes. And then I'm in connection again. If I'm in connection with someone who loves me, I'm going to probably end up in connection with myself, because that's how the system works. But I need to remember it's not going to work if I go shopping. But you know what, honey, both of us, this side of the grave, will think about going shopping before we think about calling each other, because we've been indoctrinated. It's the hardware.
Right.
So, Anne, what would be your hope for the women listening of what they could experience differently through reading the book?
God, I think that it would, like with Women, Food, and God, it's revolutionary stuff. Women, God, Food, whatever, as the teenagers say, it's revolutionary stuff. It's how we're going to save the world. Is that we're going to get into the healing of our own spirits and souls. And then we exude something, i.e. we exude self-respect, which is all I think we ever wanted anyway. And that we think, like Geneen, you and I have both been on Oprah, we think to do certain things like that means the FDA is going to give you the stamp of approval, but it doesn't. And so the revolution is to realize that it starts where we are. I always say to myself, be where your butt is. and then I have a cool glass of water or a cup of tea, and then I can offer the world something from the place of abundance and being filled with it, and I can offer that to someone who's then going to carry the word, and little by little we're going to change the world. We're going to save the planet. We're going to get some sane gun control going, you know. But it starts, the horrible thing is it starts with us. We want it to be out there. I want to buy it, and I'd like to probably buy 2 of it. And eventually I'd like to fit into a smaller size, and I'd also like from, you know, blah, blah, blah. And it starts with us. And so it's revolutionary stuff, this radical self-love and radical self-respect, and starting where we are and breathing as a radical act. So that is what I hope, is that as many women as possible will just like get with this program. This is free. This is here. This is now. This is us. We want you. We have what you have. We're doing some very deep healing. We have that to offer. And the only price of admission is that then we'd love for you to pass it on. Pass it on to the teenagers. Pass it on. The little girls are dieting. The 8-year-olds are dieting. You know, the 8-year-olds are having a huge increase in anorexia. And so what we would ask you to do is to pass it on. And one by one, take someone aside and say, hey, if you've got a minute, because I brought you something. And I think it will change the whole course of your life. And I honestly do feel that.
And thank you so much for joining us. And
You're
I want to encourage everyone to go and order a copy of the book. You can just scroll down on the page right now. And that's certainly my experience of the message of this book, Geneen, and the exquisite transformation and experience of freedom and flow that opens up through reading the pages of this book. So thank you so much for joining us.
I love you, Geneen.
Oh, love you, Annie.
Claire, when it says leave meeting, should I click on that?
Yes,
Okay.
that's great.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. Love you. Appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow. we just got an Lamott blast. So, but I really love what Anne said, and I just want to underscore a couple of things from that and see if we can go even deeper with this, because, you know, Anne was speaking, and this is my experience too, is that there's a particular way that all of these cultural things about, you know, how we need to be as women affect our experience of our power and our voice and our experience of happiness and fulfillment, and ultimately hold us back from the life that we are here to live. And we know with the time that we're living in right now, there couldn't be a more important time or moment for women to find our power, to find our voice, to be able to step forward, to let go of all of these things that are holding us back. And there's so much here in the message of your book that gives us deep and profound access to really do it. So we were having a conversation before Anne joined us that I'd love to just deepen into. How do we really do it? And what happens on the other side?
Yeah, so Annie mentioned radical self-care. I call it fierce kindness. So we have different words for it. But or I shouldn't say but, there is the how part isn't really that sexy, but it's absolutely works. And so the how part is and so let's just build on what Annie said. The 2 things that Annie said: be where your butt is, which is arrive in your body, be here, actually show up. Most of us don't show up. And so we miss our lives. And of course, therefore, miss the experience, as you just named it, of our own power, if we want to use that word. But we miss the experience of our aliveness. We miss the experience of our own full hearts. We miss the experience when we're not where our butt is, as Annie said, or as I say, standing in our own 2 shoes, sensing what it's like to show up in this life right now. And how you do that is you use your eyes to see, you use your ears to hear, to listen, you use your hands to touch and to feel. You just notice where you are. Most of us walk through our lives as if we're walking through airports, through, in same old stores we've always seen. We just disregard it while we get lost in the stories of our minds. So this is about standing in our own two shoes and therefore in our own power. You can't have power if you're not located in your own body. You just can't. It doesn't make any sense. So unless you're here, there's got to be somebody here to have the power. And so unless you're here, forget it. You don't. Stand in your own two shoes. What Annie was talking about was turning towards yourself with kindness. She called it, as I said, radical self-care. That means that you develop a relationship with yourself and all these messy parts, these messy things that you really, really don't even want to look at, but that are there nonetheless. You learn how to be kind to them. First of all, you don't take them personally. This is the big thing. You see that, oh, there it is. It's like a long playing record, which we don't have anymore. It's playing the top 3 tunes of my life. Here we go again. And so it's going, and if it triggers you, so that, let's just say I wake up in a trance of worthlessness or negativity, which wouldn't be unusual for me to wake up like that. And if I do, then I'm willing to, I will start working with myself there, just turning towards myself with.
Well, so, and I just want to underscore this for everybody listening in, because this is someone, you're someone who has achieved so much success, so much recognition. #1 New York Times bestselling author for 6 months, sold out retreats, seminars around the country, celebrated by Oprah, all of the kind of leaders of culture. And this is your experience that you're naming.
Yes.
Right? And I'm underscoring this because we think this is going to change when the someday where we have the right, where the right weight, with the right bank balance, within the right relationship, when circumstances lined up, we're not going to feel these feelings of being not enough, of being insufficient, of being in lack, of feeling shame, of feeling disconnected. And so what I hear you saying is there's no end to that. It doesn't end, but what can change and where you have a different experience is when your relationship to it changes.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, you realize that someday never comes. I was thinking about this the other day. I was thinking about how many times Annie was talking about shopping. And I was thinking about how many times I've been caught or enchanted by a fabulous something. And over the years, it just kept changing. The fabulous something changed. Oh, it was a fabulous pair of boots, and then it was a fabulous sweater, and then it was a fabulous pair of earrings, and then. I wrote a piece about this in my first book, Feeding the Hungry Heart. It was called If Only I Had, Then I Would Be Happy. And I click through a series of things. So the thing is that someday never comes. It just never comes. It never gets here because it's always in the future. I just had a little brain teaser show up on my phone this morning. What's always coming but never arrives? And the answer was tomorrow, because tomorrow, when it comes, is still today. So tomorrow never comes. Someday never comes. Forget it. It never comes. Just ask yourself that question. Has tomorrow ever been today? No. Today has always been today. That's how it works. And so what Annie said, which is what I say over and over and over again in this messy, magnificent life, is it's not out there. It's really, and so what's the point of putting your life on hold to be ready? So stop waiting to be ready. Whatever you're getting ready to wait for, it's not happening. It's right here, right now, but it's actually out of this paradigm that we're talking about of trying to fix this and fix that and get it all together and get those octopus legs under the octopus because one of them always keeps falling out. It's not about getting it all together. It's about being in a different relationship to the legs that are falling out, if you want to say it like that. So it's about seeing that that's how it goes. There's nothing wrong there. That's the way it's always going to go. And to understand that and to not take it personally, but to also treat yourself with utmost kindness right there, right then, when you're feeling like, it's not working. And it's like, oh, so we call it the oh, sweetheart practice. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Oh,
well, so in many ways, you're pointing to the experience of spiritual enlightenment and awakening. But the thing that I just so love and appreciate about the book, which I have to just keep showing everybody here, is that you have such a profound gift at being able to name that which is unnamed in the experience of women today, and the struggles and our pain and our challenges. And the thing that I think this is my favorite of all your books. And you're an incredibly brilliant writer, and every book is its own masterpiece. And I think one of the things that makes this so special is that, and this is not knowing you as a person, is that you don't just rest on what you know and recycle ideas that you've had before. You're first and foremost a student and a learner and a practitioner. And so you're sharing from the edge of your own experience and your discoveries. And you take us on this journey through these laugh out loud, funny moments. I found myself just like literally just laughing hysterically at certain points in the book and crying. And being moved and feeling a connection with the sacred. There's one or two places where you guide us through the experiences that take me back to the most profound spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life, where we're touched and infused with the divine. Mm-hmm. So with this beautiful writing, with these personal stories that are so enjoyable, there's a transmission that you get just through turning the pages of this book that gives access to the liberation that we're speaking about, that is world changing. And, I want to encourage every woman that I know to go and buy a copy of this book, all the women in our community to pick up a copy of this book. And I'm wondering if you can you're the beginning of your book tour, but can you take us on a little tour of the book? Because I know there's stories in the book, but there's also very practical how-tos and takeaways. I know you have touchstones in there of practices and things that you can do on an ongoing basis once you've gone through the series of shifts in your own relationship to life, to experience freedom, flow, connection right now in this moment. So can you just give us a little tour and an overview? And then I'd love to invite you to do a reading, to actually share one of the beautiful and brilliant pieces of writing in the book.
Good. Okay. Well, I want to point out the moon again to everybody.
That is the most glorious.
I mean, let's face it. It's such a beautiful gold hand embossed moon. One of a kind, guys, girls. Only this printing. So each chapter really, well, first of all, Annie said she wrote the introduction, and she did. It's a beautiful introduction.
Yeah.
It's funny and fabulous and beautiful. And each chapter starts with a situation that would seem unworkable or would seem disturbing or would seem, well, how do I get through this? Like the first chapter is called Mana, It's About Enough. And it starts with me evacuating our house because of a fire. And I go through the question of, well, what clothes am I going to take? And remembering my father and his clothes and asking myself the question of what really satisfies me. It goes on the whole first section of the book. The book is divided into 3 sections. The first section is called Around the Table, and it is actually about the relationship with food from a different perspective than I've written about before. So the second question is about the last bite. What happens? And Claire, you said this is one of your favorite chapters.
That is my favorite chapter. Yeah.
Well, that's a chapter where
but it's hard to say because they're all so good.
Well, anyway, I'm sitting at the table with a bowl of coconut tomato soup. It's delicious. And not wanting it to end and realizing, uh-oh, it's coming to an end. I don't want it to end. And going through the experience, both that my students have at my retreats about when they don't want to stop eating, but also I'm having it in that moment too. I don't want to end this. And then I start asking myself the question, what is it that I don't want to end? What is it that I have to face when it's all over? So that chapter is about endings, but it's about beginnings of other things when you end eating. Then the rest of that section is also about food and body. The next chapter is Heavenly Bodies. It's about when I broke my back in an accident, and it starts out saying that before I broke my back in an accident last year, I didn't realize I had a back. And then the next sentence is, oh yeah, I knew I had a back and that it was in the back of my front, but I didn't really live in my body. So that chapter is actually about living in the body. And it goes on. So then the next chapter is called If I Were Gloria Steinem. And so it's about the energy of obsession. And it's about the fact that this really is a big issue for women. And that is about what the masterclass is about releasing the energy of obsession. There are a couple more chapters in there. The next section is about Through the Mind. It's called Through the Mind. And it's really about working with our core beliefs, our different thoughts. I tell the story in there about how when we got Izzy, our puppy, how I wanted to return her in a FedEx box because she had a hypervigilant nervous system like mine, and I didn't want a dog with a hypervigilant nervous system. That whole part is about facing challenging situations, like when I was sick for 4 months. And there was nothing the doctor could do, and I had to cancel everything, and I felt stuck and trapped and imprisoned by being sick, and how I worked with that. So it's about core beliefs that we have. It's about the stories we tell ourselves about the situations in which we find ourselves. It's about how we believe our own thoughts and how we believe our own stories and the kind of suffering that causes when we do, and the difference between a situation, what happens, basically, reality, and what we tell ourselves, and how we scare ourselves half to death a lot from the stories, put ourselves into panics or anxiety. So it's about learning the difference there, and with different situations that we find ourselves in. The next one, is this the question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. The next part is called Into the Sublime, and it's about the part of us that's never been broken. It's about the part that notices, and actually we've been talking a lot about this part tonight. Annie talked about it, you talked about it, I'm talking about it. It's about when I say be in relationship to the messiness in your life, it's about what notices the messiness, because you couldn't notice the messiness if all there was just messiness. So it's about knowing the difference between what you're noticing and what is noticing what you're noticing. So it's about that free, never broken, open space that's already healed, that was never damaged to begin with. And so that last section is about that.
Beautiful. And I think that's really, ultimately, there's no fixing the parts of us that feel broken. There's no healing the parts of us that feel unhealed. There's only a shift to a new way of perceiving and experiencing and accessing a part of ourselves that is already whole.
And there's realizing, there's a chapter in here about the end of therapy and about when my therapist told me after 30 years of different kinds of therapy that it was time, I was done. And I had to take out this line because none of my editors liked it, but I spit up the tea that I was drinking on my new sweater because I was like, no, done wasn't supposed to look like this. I'm supposed to have a nervous system like Matt's, which is always in parasympathetic mode. I'm supposed to wake up happy every day. I'm supposed to not get reactive anymore. Done with therapy is basically having a different childhood with a different life and a different nervous system. That's what done looks like. And I realized that all these years I've been waiting for somebody to come and rescue me, for somebody to come and fix me, that I felt like, okay, I paid enough in sorrow. Now somebody has to do the rest of it. I'm done. And so when she said you're done, I realized, oh, wow. Done does not mean that when the parts of me get reactive, that they don't feel exactly the same as they did when they first got formed. So when I get reactive and I feel like a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old, I still feel like a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old. So in that way, right, it doesn't get fixed. I'm never going to go back and rewire what that 3 or 6 or 10-year-old felt. So every time that gets triggered, it's going to feel exactly the same. So in that sense, right, there's no fixing it. What there is showering it with kindness, with what it wanted and it didn't actually ever perceive was there, which was, oh, honey, come on. It wants to be listened to. It wants to be cherished, wants to belong to somebody. And I'm the only one that can show it that. And I'll tell you, I resented that for a really long time. But, and I thought it was going to get healed when I met Matt, who said to me, I'm going to love you the way nobody's ever loved you in your life. And he's right, and he has, and it still didn't fix that. The only thing that fixes that is me turning toward myself, realizing that that's, showering myself with whatever I can muster in the moment, and realizing that I am not that in this moment, and I ask myself this many times a day, am I okay right now? And so in this moment, I'm not her. This is a voice. This is a trigger. This was definitely my experience then. It is not true now. So I break that trance.
Powerful. Will you read us a piece from the book, Snorkeling in the Night Sky?
Oh, you want me to read you Snorkeling in the Night Sky now?
Yes.
Okay, I will. We had also talked about me reading What's Not Wrong.
Oh, do you want to start there?
Well, I don't think it matters. What isn't wrong, which is a key part of, why don't I read that and we can read The Night Sky after
That's great.
Because this is a very short piece. This is called What Isn't Wrong. The rain in the south of France that summer was relentless. My feet were never dry, and because I had packed as if I was going to the Riviera instead of a month-long retreat in a moldy brown tent at Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village Center, I didn't have a raincoat. Morning meditations at 6 a.m. were cold, wet, and clammy. Even evening meditations were waterlogged and frosty. Although I was supposed to be focusing on my breath or listening to a talk about the 7 heaven realms, I was convinced I was trapped in a clammy Buddhist hellhole. One sodden morning, Thich Nhat Hanh changed topics from Buddhist sutras to toothaches. How many of you don't have a toothache right now, he asked. I can't remember whether everyone raised their hands, but there was definitely a quorum of non-toothache candidates in the room. Then he said, when we have a toothache, all we can think about is our toothache. And he did say, so when we don't have a toothache, we never appreciate the fact that we don't have a toothache. And he asked each of us to turn to a partner and take 5 minutes to appreciate the state of not a toothache. And just like that, as I listed all the things that weren't wet and didn't hurt or ache, I noticed myself feeling light and undeniably happy. Now notice that nothing needed to change. It was still raining and my feet were still damp, but my attention was no longer a constellation of what was wrong. Once again, I realized it wasn't the dampness. It's never the dampness. And that does not mean I would choose to wear wet shoes or go back to Plum Village. Dampness isn't miserable. It's just dampness. That's all. And then I'm going to skip to the end of that chapter.
Well, just give us a moment to just take this in. See, and I think this is what is just so powerful about the book, is that there's a beautiful piece of writing. There's something from your own experience. And if we're kind of with that for just a moment.
Right. Take it in.
Take it in.
Yes, that's good.
Take it in. Like, I'd never thought of that before. Reading the idea that, you know, I mean, just think about, I'm just trying to think about this for one moment, right? Our attention. Well, think about what's your attention on right now that's wrong with your life or with this moment.
Yes.
Right? So what happens? And, you know, what happens just for all of us, just taking a moment to do this, just shift your attention to the things that are going well, that are right, that are good, that are true. It could be the experience of warmth. There's light, there's heat, there's technology. Here we are at this global event, this global gathering.
Yes, it depends on what you put your attention on. And I think this was a really big learning for me. And also when we lost our money, this sort of reiterates that. What I say is, at its most basic, meditation is about watching thoughts without identifying with them.
Mm-hmm.
You notice the mind activity and that you've had a choice. And here's the thing, you always have a choice. This is where we always have a choice about where to direct our attention.
Well, and so what happens is when you take your attention to this new place, I'm coming back to one of the things that Anne said, is it actually takes us out of isolation and into connection, and
Yes.
into life, and into creativity, and into possibility, and into intimacy. Right? Like the things that bring life and the things that bring power can only happen and only come from that place of our attention being somewhere else other than what's wrong and what's not working and why we're doomed, or why what we want isn't possible. All of those other places that we get stuck and stopped.
Yes. And it's so important to know that, because most of us are frightened of doing that. We somehow fear, and this goes back a little bit to what we were talking about before, that if we do that, we'll get complacent and we'll never change. And we'll never change the world. We won't act. And it's the very opposite, I have found, that when I put my attention, when I sort of realign myself with this aliveness, with this life force, with what's not wrong, it becomes much more apparent to me what to do, how to act, how to effect any kind of change. And that's the irony right there. Somehow we feel like suffering is noble, and that if we just keep going around and around and around in it, then somehow a solution will appear, but it never does. Mm-hmm. It's just always the next thing that's wrong. So yeah.
Beautiful. Would you read us Snorkeling in the Night Sky?
Yes, I will.
That's one of my other favorite chapters. I keep saying that because it's like every chapter is my favorite chapter.
Many chapters are your favorite
They are. Every time I hear one, I'm like, that's my favorite one.
night comes, well, it starts out with no, I'll just do this. Snorkeling in the night sky. Night comes swiftly like a great, dark, soft thing. And for most of my life, I've greeted it reluctantly, as if behind the darkness lurked terror and shattered hearts. My mother says, you were a fast napper from the day you were born. Other kids went down for 2 hours. You slept for 20 minutes and were up for the rest of the day. Even as an infant, I didn't want to surrender to that dark, soft thing. After an early menopause, I started waking up 3-4 times a night. At first, I tried natural remedies, melatonin, bioidentical hormones, cortisol adaptogens, then unnatural ones, drugs. But since I have a paradoxical reaction to drugs, Ambien kept me awake, and during the second week I took Ativan, I developed suicidal proclivities and wanted to jump off a bridge. I decided not to take drugs. Then I downloaded sleep music, tried brain balancing techniques, listened to books on tape. Still, night after night, my eyes flew open like clockwork, and with them began the rattling of my mind and the descent into the catastrophic. The pain in my chest is congestive heart failure. I'm sure of it. I'm having a heart attack. The ugly, I've been married to the wrong person for 30 years. And the ugliest, was that noise a rapist? Where's my gun? Oh, right, I don't have one. In her book, Marrow, Elizabeth Lesser, who will be joining us, calls this litany middle of the nightism. And she urges us not to believe any thoughts that occur between midnight and 6 in the morning. To that wise advice, I would add, and stop reading all articles that tell you that not getting enough sleep can lead to Alzheimer's, ALS, and autoimmune disease, particularly if, like me, you might be a teeny bit prone to hypochondria. A few months ago, after lying in bed like a pencil in a drawer for hours each night, trying desperately to be peaceful and instead feeling insane and judgmental, after 40 years meditating, you still can't quiet your mind, I decided that if I couldn't sleep, I shouldn't sleep. And that there must be something I could do that didn't require putting on lights, because as every insomniac knows, you're supposed to turn all lights down at dusk and keep your bedroom cool and dark to facilitate ongoing melatonin release. I remembered an article in the New Yorker in which the author says that before the advent of electricity and artificial light, people didn't sleep through the night. They'd sleep when it got dark, sleep one, and after a few hours, they'd wake up, congregate in small groups, and chat convivially. Then they'd trundle off to their stacks of hay and revive themselves with more sleep, which was called sleep two. Visiting friends in the middle of the night, having tea, biscuits, and a chat in flannel pajamas sounds quite civilized to me. Like those newly emergent death cafes where strangers gather to eat cake, drink tea, and discuss death to help them make the most of their finite lives. In a sleepless cafe, though, strangers could huddle together and discuss being awake in the middle of the night. But since I live in the forest, half an hour away from any place where insomniacs might huddle, I decided to start my own nighttime ritual. Now, when my eyes fly open at 3, I follow my breath from my toes to the top of my head and back again a few times. Then I do the 4-7-8 sleep breath, 4 on the in-breath, 7 on the top, 8 on the out. And sometimes I listen to the writing of George Eliot. And if Mr. Kasabin doesn't aggravate me too much, I might fall asleep. But if I'm still awake after 15 minutes, I say to myself, time to go visiting. I slip into my bright pink slippers with the floppy felt turquoise flowers. Claire, you've seen those slippers.
I love those slippers.
Pad into the dark hall with my arms outstretched like a zombie so I don't bang into walls, trip over chairs, inch my way to the back door, slip into my knee-high black Wellingtons, and grope for the door. I open the door, I step down, and I look up. And just like that, I'm in another world. The glittering bowl of the night sky is so vast that it seems as if I am upside down, like the first time I went snorkeling and saw that the ocean had an underneath. Undulating anemones, knobs of rutulent coral, neon purple and green rainbow fish that must have been here all along, but because I never looked below the surface, I never knew. In the middle of the night, with the very first step, I feel as if I am snorkeling in the night sky, gliding around the stars, letting the consummate darkness penetrate my fevered mind. I can't believe that this underneath has been waiting for me all along. And if not exactly terrified of it, I've been highly suspicious of its secrets and vast mystery. An owl hoots, the sound ricochets against the trees, a mockingbird sings, the wind chimes rustle against each other like tiny monastery bells. And as my eyes adjust to the dark, I start walking, which feels like swimming. Outside is in, upside is down, the vastness in the sky and the space between my ribs in my chest, and inside every cell is hollow and full, nothing and everything. Drenched in stillness now, my body moves back to the house, swims down the hallway, moves into bed, and dissolves like the space inside an anemone when it closes, like the deathless beauty of no me, no you, no world.
Wow, beautiful. And again, it's like I just want to invite us all to take a moment just to take all of that in and just breathe into your body and see what is evoked. And I think this is one of the things I so deeply appreciate about your writing, Geneen, is just how much it evokes, how much it stirs, how much it activates, how much it catalyzes. I'm just like with it. I'm just feeling it. And just, I've heard that piece, and I heard that piece with you in your home, I think fairly soon after when you wrote it. And it just, each time I hear it, it takes me to places in myself, even though I'm married, even though I have a lot of friends, it takes me to a place that I've always been alone in. And I think this is the thing about your writing that's so powerful. It's like you reach in and you're there with the reader in those places in ourselves that we have been alone in our entire lives. And I feel you there sitting beside me. And I feel you showing me a new way of looking at and experiencing these places that we've often been so isolated in. And I think this is the power of this book, the places within us that we have felt alone, where we have felt broken, where we have felt isolated, where we have felt uncertain. It's a huge thing for us as women, the places where we lack confidence and we have self-doubt and we feel insecure. I feel you entering into those places with us and bringing us back into connection, bringing us back into life. And so, it's with that, this messy, magnificent life, a field guide. I want to encourage everyone to go and order a copy here on launch day, or if you're listening to the recording later, there's still time to go and order a copy of the book. And I know, Geneen, when everyone orders a copy of the book, all you need to do is go in and enter your email address, the receipt number, to get access to this bonus masterclass on women, weight, and power. And I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about this new masterclass, as I know this is something you've been teaching for years. And gosh, there's never been a more important time for women to step up and to step out. And I know that this is something that you're going to be working with in this bonus masterclass session.
Yes. So I addressed this a little bit in the piece, If I Were Gloria Steinem. And by the way, I love Gloria Steinem.
That's my favorite chapter. No. No, when you get the book, you're going to see what I mean by that.
You are very funny. Well, you know what? Every chapter is my favorite chapter too. You know, usually
Yeah.
I finish a book and it's done and I look back and, oh, I should have changed that. And oh, there is a place in the book, though, I have to say, where there's a typo where Matt is called Mike. So when you, the reader, come across that,
Just so you know, you do live in Marin, but it's not that.
Yeah, we don't have that. And I was reading it for the audio book, and I picked up on that. I said the sentence, and it was, so anyway, Mike said to me, and I looked up and I said, Mike? His name isn't Mike, it's Matt. And it's in the book as Mike, so please forgive us. It will be changed next time, but of course, next time, there won't be the golden moon on your cover. So, you know, it's going to be Mike in some chapter of the book. Now let's see, what was I saying? I was talking about
the masterclass. We're talking about the masterclass. So, and Gloria, and that is an incredible chapter of the book. I mean, if we had 4 hours, we'd read the whole book. But you know, that chapter of the book I just love, because you speak about the way in which, as women, so much of our energy and attention is spent obsessing about our bodies. I mean, I read a statistic. I think it's something like 90% of us have some kind of disordered relationship to food or our bodies. I mean, 90% of women, the amount of energy that is being consumed through all of these things. So, you know, so share about the masterclass. That's what we were talking about.
So I wanted to address that both in the book, in that chapter, but also to address it because of what's going on right now in our culture with the hashtag Me Too movement and Time's Up, and the fact that women are speaking up and speaking out. You know, remind me, Claire, if we have time to talk a little bit about the red string, because that's also related to speaking up and speaking out. But in terms of the masterclass, I have thought so very often that if we as women could release the energy that we have tied up in the obsession with the size of our bodies, it would be enough to power a nuclear plant. It would be enough to light up a whole city. It would be enough to change the world. But if our energy, if our best energy, or the bulk of our energy, or even half our energy, or a third of our energy is tied up in judging and shaming and depriving ourselves, that's energy that we don't have for ourselves, for our children, for deciding what to do. I feel like if women were running the world, it would be a very different world. There would be a different kind of decision making that would be going on, more considerations that would be happening, not so much emphasis on out there, but it would be a combination of in here and out there, a considered approach. It wouldn't be us against them, but it would be what we are for. And so releasing the energy of obsession, women, weight, and power is about that. How to release the energy of obsession. First of all, naming the fact that it's tied up, naming how we've objectified our bodies and treat our bodies in the same way that they have been treated. So we've internalized an external message about objectification and women ourselves, and sort of treat ourselves badly and or with harshness. And so this is about releasing that power that we've tied up there.
Wow. So you can go and order your copy of the book right now and just come back and enter in your email address, and you'll be on the list to get access to that additional bonus masterclass. So Elizabeth has just joined us. Hi, Elizabeth. Yay! Okay, so Elizabeth, hi, I'm Claire, welcome. And I just want to introduce you to everyone. Want to formally welcome you to the world premiere of Geneen's book, This Messy, Magnificent Life. We've been having a wonderful time tonight. We've had Geneen sharing about the book, and and Lamont, and now it's such an honor to have you with us. I know you're the co-founder of the Omega Institute and also a multiple New York Times bestselling author of Broken Open and Marrow. And I know you're a good friend of Geneen, so welcome. We're so happy to have you with us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Hi, Geneen.
Hi, it's so good to see you.
You too.
So we've been having such a deep and rich and soulful conversation, and we were just talking about this particular moment of the rise of women and why it's so important that we let go of so many of these old stories and places that keep us isolated and shame. I know you're such a huge champion of women and women's power in the world. Maybe we can just love to invite you just to start with like what resonates for you about the message of Geneen's book and why is it important at this particular moment?
Oh, wow. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm glad you've been having a great time, and I hope everybody who's watching is too. Well, Geneen's books have been really important to me, all of them, and our friendship has been too. She's the real deal, people. And mostly for me, they've been important, whether they're books about food or the book now, which is about just daily life. It's putting down this stressful burden of perfection that I feel all humans suffer from, but women really suffer from. There's so much joy to be had in life and so much work to be done, and we spend so much time obsessing about how we're not perfect, how we don't look right, how we're the wrong age, how we're the wrong everything. And what I love about this new book is that it takes it out of only food and brings it into every aspect of our life. I love the book, Geneen. I spend a little time with it every day. It's funny. It makes me laugh out loud, which is a wonderful way to get over perfectionism, is to laugh. And for women, I just think this is our time. It's obviously our time. We're seeing it everywhere. The world needs us so desperately to stand in who we are, in our power, our kind of power, not just to be powerful, but to do power differently. And I find Geneen's book is this like deep breath of allowing ourselves just to put down all the striving and to show up exactly how we are, messy, wonderful, right on time, perfect for these times.
Oh, so beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Beautiful. And one of the things I know Geneen was sharing about, and this is something I'm sure in your experience, you have so many accomplishments. Geneen has so many accomplishments and was sharing about this. And there's an idea that we have that somehow, when we have the right relationship, when we have the right career success, then we're going to have the experience of feeling full, of feeling happy. And Geneen was sharing the story of a woman that she knows who's also very, who wakes up filled with anxiety. What's your experience and how this shows up in your life? And, kind of what's the shift, or what is it that gives you access to letting it go?
People always make this assumption that if you write about or teach about self reflection and self-perfection and meditation and spirituality, that somehow you have reached the plateau and you're in the promised land and you never have problems. And one of the great gifts of being involved at Omega Institute, which has been around for 40 years now, so hundreds of thousands of people have come through, thousands of teachers have come through, and I have met and worked with all of the enlightened ones since I was in my 20s. And the great gift for me, besides getting their wisdom, is that I've found out they're all messed up people just like you and me, whether it's the Dalai Lama or Oprah or Eckhart Tolle or whomever. You just pick one. Everyone is flawed. Everyone wakes up anxious. It doesn't matter how much we've practiced or written or what we look like. to the outside world. Inside, it's a very vulnerable thing to be a human being.
Mm.
We live we're mortal. The earth is spinning round and round. Humanity is all screwed up. Everybody wakes up anxious and wondering and not feeling enough. And for me, knowing that I'm not alone in that there's not something fundamentally flawed in me, that's been the greatest thing that lets me off the hook. There's no one who's perfect. And I've met the so-called perfected ones. We're all in this together. So that is what I often do to relax. I realize I'm just like everybody else. Everybody else is just like me. So if there was some big secret, everyone would have bought it by now. And there isn't. So we work hard, we get better. Yes, we can get better and more relaxed and kinder. But mostly, as Geneen says in her book so wisely, we don't get there by striving. We get there by putting down the striving.
Mm-hmm. Powerful. And is there how does that kind of show up in your daily life now in seeing that? Like, how has like that insight affected you or impacted you in terms of how your relationship with things has changed, that gives you access to more creativity? You know, we've been talking a lot tonight about how, you know, when we're in that energy of the problem or insufficiency or not enoughness or shame, that we kind of contract in isolation and contract in separation, and there's no access to any, you know, we're separated out from life. And, you know, in that reconnection, there's resources, there's relationship, there's intimacy, there's possibility. Like, what's the, you know, knowing that, what's the new movement and what gives you access to getting out of it?
Well, I can tell you best just by telling you something I've been through recently. About 2 years ago, my sister came out of remission and was dying from lymphoma, and she needed a bone marrow transplant. And fortunately, I tested as her perfect marrow match. It's called perfect because all 10 of my genetic markers lined up with hers. So we were so excited. I was perfectly matched for her. And because I'm such a striver and I always have to do things really, really well, I took it on myself once we had the bone marrow transplant. The marrow was taken out of me and transplanted into my sister. And what happens after that is that all of her blood was my blood. They kill off all the bone marrow in the patient, and all of her blood for the rest of her life is my blood. So given my mind-body connection thing from all my years in holistic medicine, I thought, wow, I know that like my moods and my stress and my state of being affects my body. It affects my immunity. Uh-oh, now all the blood in her is my blood. Now I gotta be perfect for her too. And so for about 6 months, I started like revving up the, I'm gonna be good, I'm gonna be better, I'm gonna be kinder and nicer and wiser and less stressed. And she and I were getting closer and closer. We were spending a tremendous amount of time together. And at one point, I'm telling her all this stuff I'm doing so that she lives, so that my cells and her cells get along and they don't reject each other or attack each other. She turned to me and she said, look, I know you're my perfect match, but you don't have to be perfect to be my perfect match. You are enough. Just you. Just stop. Just like love me. And you've done everything you can. And even though I've heard that message so much in my life, like you're enough, just who you are, that's what people want. You're authentic you. You don't have to do anything. Just be you. Somehow the life and death situation that we were in together really finally got through to me. This idea that I'm enough. I don't have to keep proving myself or doing anything. I'm enough. Our sisterhood is enough. And that has really affected me. It, it took all these years of living and that situation to finally like get it through this hard head of mine, that it's like, wow, Geneen is my friend. She loves me. Why? Because me, just me. That's all. I don't have to keep proving myself over and over. Wow, it's taken me a long time to learn that.
Wow.
So beautiful.
Powerful. And what would be your hope for all of the women listening in or who are going to read the book, and what they can experience on the other side in their life as a result of reading the book?
Well, you know, it's this fine line I think we all find ourselves in these days. I was actually emailing with Geneen about this morning. Like, they are really difficult times we're living in now, and the world needs us desperately. I feel it needs women's particular wisdom, needs our leadership. It needs us believing in ourselves so we are strong enough to lead. But at the same time, it doesn't need us to lead and be active and be activists in the old way, the way of forcing and pushing, and I'm right and you're wrong. So what I love about Geneen's book is that it doesn't tell you to drop out of the world and just meditate and be, you know, peaceful in your own life. That's fine. But it also is saying the way to change the world is to stop pushing ourselves so hard, to know we're enough, and to come at whatever work we do for the world from that state of self-love. I mean, how are we going to love the world into peace if we don't love ourselves, if we're not at peace with ourselves? So I think it's really a great book for our times, because she's a person of the world. She spent her life, you, Geneen, serving other people, but always checking in with her intention about checking her ego at the door, checking her constant hunger for more and more, and relaxing into this mysterious life so that our offerings can actually be the peace we want.
That's beautiful. And that's so moving. Just, you know, Elizabeth, the things you were saying about Geneen, and while you're here and while we're here together, and this is the book's launch day. I was bouncing the book up and down like a little baby earlier this morning. It's like, it's a beautiful baby book, girl. and so, you know, I just think it would be just wonderful just to have an opportunity to, you know, just to amplify what you were saying about who Geneen is as a person. And I think this is the power of the book and how it comes through in the book is, you know, I mean, you've shared the experience of teachers and, you know, in general, and I've had such a great opportunity to meet and work with so many amazing teachers in our time. And the thing that draws me so much to you, Geneen, is, you know, it's rare in this world to find someone who has so much accomplishment, who's not living into any story about that in terms of who you are, and that you are striving to continue to learn and face and engage and discover and share that as such a gift of generosity with all of us. And so I just want to amplify and echo just that experience and just that celebration of you while we're all here together on this exquisite book that you have created 6 years in the making. And, you know, want to just invite you, Elizabeth, anything else that you might want to say about that before we end this part while we're together celebrating Geneen.
I was rereading my favorite little chapter today, Geneen, called The Blue Vest. And
that's my favorite chapter too. Sorry, it's a running joke tonight because we've been, every time a chapter is mentioned, I'd be like, that's my favorite chapter.
Oh, The Blue Vest is like, it's like got the whole book is in that one little chapter. It's so funny. It's laugh out loud funny, but it's also beautifully written, and it's got it's very colorful, which your writing is very colorful. Like I can see that blue vest, and I can feel this deep desire for beauty in your life. You love beauty, you revere beauty, and it's just a story that anybody could relate to, especially women, about wanting something and then second guessing yourself and wanting something, and then getting really clear about your intention of why you wanted that blue vest, which was because it was beautiful and you love beauty. And that's something I love about women, is that, you know, our religion is beauty, and we want the world to be beautiful. We know it can be, and it is. So that's why I loved that funny chapter called The Blue Vest. And I read it over and over just because it makes me laugh, but it also makes me feel holy in my love and desire for beauty.
That's just beautiful, gorgeous. Thank you, Colin.
Thank you. I love that chapter too.
That's your favorite one too?
We almost read it, I almost read it tonight. But it's a long chapter, so I decided not to read that chapter. But, anyway.
Well, people can read it on their own.
Yes, that's right.
You can go and order the book right now below and pick up a copy to read it right now.
Yes.
Elizabeth, such a joy to be with you. Thank you so much for your brilliant leadership in our world and your support of Geneen and being with us and blessing this launch day with your presence and your
staying up so late.
9:45.
Right.
We appreciate you so much.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, just beautiful. So nourishing. No, so nourishing to be together and to be in this conversation. And, I just think, as someone who really stands for the empowerment of women, so many of the things we've been talking about tonight are so, they've been true for such a long time, but there's never been a more important time to get beyond them. And the things where we lose power are the places where we're stuck in disconnection, where we're stuck in shame, we're stuck in unworthiness. Where we find our power is when we remove and we rejoin into connection. And through just this series of inspiring and funny and deep and just moving and engaging and revealing stories that you share in this book, we have access to really to the experience of wholeness. I really think this is a map to wholeness, like for real, for people to experience. So I want to just take a moment to encourage everybody to go scroll down the page, and you're going to find the buttons where you can go and order the book from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble. All you need to do is come back to this page. And if you're here at this event or listening to the recording, you've got an email. So we'll keep sending you the emails about where you can be entering in your receipt number to get access to the bonus masterclass on women, weight, and power as well. So Geneen, it's been such a rich and full time. I just want to end tonight by inviting you to share what's your biggest hope for what the women who read your book will be able to experience on the other side.
Well, first of all, I want people to know that they're not alone, that in their craziest, darkest hour, in the moments where they feel that they can't tell anybody what's going on, even their best friends, even their partners, to know that they are not alone, that it's sort of as Elizabeth was talking about, that there can be relaxation even there, that I have been through it, because I make no bones about revealing the extent of what I call my own madness and how I am with it. So I want people to understand, to know, to feel that they are okay, that they are enough, that oh, I don't even know what to, healing isn't even the right word,
Mm-hmm.
that a different kind of way of being alive in this world with themselves as they are right now is possible. It's right here. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about waiting to get ready. It's not about fixing yourself so that you'll deserve it. It's not about anything like that. It's about knowing right here, right now, that there is that not brokenness. You are not broken. And how to learn how to be with that, so that, and as I say in the book, what happens is that you forget and then you remember, and you forget and then you remember, and the times of forgetting this become shorter and the remembering times become longer, and after a while there's just teeny little wisps of forgetting, and the remembering is longer and longer. And so I want this book to comfort, to heal, to soothe, to make you laugh out loud, to make you laugh hysterically, and in that laughter to relax and know that you're okay right now. To know you have a friend. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I feel. You know, I feel that's what everyone will experience in reading the book, is that, you know, you're no longer alone in those messy, dark places of confusion, of overwhelm, of stress, of all of those places where there's disconnection, where there's anxiety, where there's shame, where there's judgment, where there's insecurity, where there's fear, the places in which we're still waiting to be ready, you know?
Yeah.
So what's one of the best experiences that you've had in your life since you made this discovery, or you've made this course shift and brought it into these other aspects of your life?
You know, I don't think, you and I have, you mentioned this before, and I really thought about it, and I don't think there's actually any one thing. I think what's been miraculous for me since working with what I speak about and write about and really teach about in this book, and of course in my retreats, is that the day-to-day experience of being alive, the moment-to-moment experience of padding to the bathroom, getting a glass of water, greeting Matt in the morning, playing with my dog, being with my friend, standing in front of an audience and giving a speech, teaching a retreat, being with my students, going outside and taking a walk, being with the trees, the moment to moment, what we call the ordinary experiences of being alive, have utterly shifted for me. So that I'm not any longer waiting for the big thing, because I know that the big thing isn't going to do it, that what I want and what I need isn't out. There's nothing out there. It's in here. And so what I wanted most of all when I started writing the book is what I actually have received in writing it and working with what I talk about in the book, because it's not just, okay, accept the messiness. It's that you see that the messiness is there and you learn how to be with it and work with it in a completely different way. And because of that, which I write about in the book, the experience of being alive has shifted dramatically. So I'm no longer worried that I'm going to get to the end of my life like all of those people that I have Googled about deathbed regrets get to the end of their lives and they feel like they forgot to live their lives. They forgot to show up. I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like I'm here. And if I'm not, I know how to be here. It's never more than the blink of an eyelash away.
Beautiful. Well, Geneen, I just want to appreciate you on behalf of everybody watching. I know I have so many women in my community and the work that I do who say to me things from, anything from just how inspired they are by your wisdom to that they are alive today because they read a book that you wrote. You've had such an extraordinary impact on the world already. I know that your work has brought comfort, has brought healing, has been life-saving for millions and millions of women. And, the thing about this book I want to just appreciate is it's the next step of your journey. And as you're taking that next step, you're inviting us all to come along and showing us how to experience freedom, love, intimacy, that experience of being in the center of the fire, of the flame, of the loving family, of the turkey dinner, of no longer being on the outside of the glass to being in the center of our lives, being in the center of creativity, magic, joy. It's right here, right now. I want to encourage everyone, if you haven't yet ordered your copy of This Messy, Magnificent Life, to go and order a copy of it right now. You can just scroll down the page and click on the link to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whichever bookseller you want to get a copy from. If you picked up a copy already, just enter your receipt number in the box that's here on this page. Geneen and her team are going to email you, get the details about how to access the live masterclass on women, weight, and power. Janine, any final words? If you could whisper. If you could
have final words. To thank you, my dear, because none of this would have happened without you. This idea was Claire's idea. We were sitting together at dinner one night and she suggested it. And I thought, what a great idea. All I have to do is send out one email. And then as Claire so amazingly, graciously, stunningly worked with me over the last 2 months, this is how long it's taken to get this together, I've just been floored and awed by the love and the wisdom and the brilliance. And so I want to thank you.
Well, you're so welcome. And when I heard, this is part of when I heard you were launching this book, and I wanted to create a space where we could bring all the women together in my community, your community, all of our friends and our colleagues' communities, to amplify the message of this book. It couldn't be more important. Plus I love you, and you are an amazing friend to me in my life. And so it's an honor and a joy to have an opportunity to be here in this moment to celebrate truly. And this is 6 years. I have seen her in her studio out the back of her house for 6 years, disappear, not be available to go shopping or other places because she was writing this book for 6 years. You are first and foremost a writer. This is a work of art. This is magnificent. This is such a gift to the world. And I just want to encourage every woman I know to go and buy a copy. Oh, one more thing I want to say about the book while we're talking about this. It's actually, it's really interesting. We were talking about that it kind of is its own genre of book. It's unlike it's not exactly self-help. So there's a lot of people in my life, from my mother-in-law to my aunt to my, kind of friends and colleagues, who might not necessarily read a personal growth book, but I can share this book and it will be, for them as impactful as if they're reading a personal growth book. So it's kind of a stealth, that way, in that you can really comfortably gift this book to, to people, my mother-in-law, she's getting older in her life, she lost her husband recently. I'm sure she has a lot of these thoughts and feelings that are coming up for her that she's alone with. You have somebody going through cancer, you have some, gosh, we all have people in our lives who are going through these difficult things. And, this is something, it's a beautiful book that you can also gift to the women in your life that you love, that you care about, that is going to inspire them, that's going to uplift them, that's going to give them something that they're going to, want to read all the way through and keep by the, this is the kind of book you keep by your bedside. That's such a source of comfort and love and inspiration. So I'm going to be ordering copies of this for the women that I love and care about, and want to encourage everyone in our Feminine Power Tribe to pick up a copy as well. And just, just appreciate the devotion of you first and foremost as a practitioner, and then the artistry that you bring in as a writer to create something that is just such a gift for all of us. And so my deepest hope for everybody listening is that through this book, that you give up waiting to be ready to live the greatness and destiny that you came into this world to experience and express. Now, I was at an event earlier today, in our clearest moments, we sense we have gifts, we have talents that the world has never seen before and may never see again after we're gone. We feel that in our clearest moments, but we don't necessarily know the clear pathway, and then we can get overcome with self-doubt and have it take us out. And the thing that I would whisper into every woman's ear is that sense you have of what your life can be and what you can feel and experience, that's real, that is real, and that it matters, and that you bringing it forward can and will change the world. And Geneen's wisdom, Geneen is, want to give yourself the gift of inviting Geneen to be in your inner circle, to be one of your close friends, to be able to link arms with you, to share her wisdom, so that you can find freedom, fulfillment, wholeness, connection, love. It's all right here, right now. It's not when you lose another 10 pounds. It's not when your bank balance changes. It's not when you're in the right relationship. It's not when you get on Oprah. It's not when you are a New York Times bestseller. It's actually right here, right now. And the book's going to show you how to access it. So I want to encourage you. Go ahead right now and make sure you order a copy of the book. Geneen, it's just the absolute honor to be here to celebrate you, to celebrate this magnificent work and gift to the world. And I just want to appreciate and just thank everybody for joining us, for your support for Geneen, for your support for the book, and look forward to being with you again soon. And so, and seeing you out on your book tour. Where are you going to be on your book tour?
Well, I'm going to be at Barnes & Noble in Manhattan. Then I'm going to New Hampshire on Thursday to do an event in Portsmouth. And the following week we'll be in Seattle. Oh, in San Francisco, I'm doing an event at Books Inc. in San Francisco next week. And then Seattle, and more in San Francisco, Los Angeles. I'm even going to Portland.
So, and JeneenRoth.com, people can go to your site to find out the schedule and the tour details.
Yes.
And on the site too, if you can't find your way back to this page, I'm sure on the site somewhere, there'll be a place where you can enter your details to get the masterclass, but you need to do that right away. So you see below for the details. And even if you're going to go to one of these events, order a book right away. And you can have Geneen. You're going to do book signings at these events too. You can bring it to the event, and Geneen will sign your book. And I know you love to meet people there too.
I do. I love meeting you.
So spread the word about the events. Have an amazing book tour, and so great to be here tonight live on The birthday of our beautiful. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Much love. Many
Love
blessings.
you all. Bye-bye.